The alien girl collapsed against the bulkhead, 3 meters from where Lieutenant Danny Carter stood guard. Her skin shimmered pale blue under the harsh corridor lights, and her breathing came in sharp, rattling gasps. Blood, darker than human blood, seeped through her tattered uniform. Carter's hand moved to his sidearm. Protocol was clear. Unknown species, restricted zone, potential threat. She looked up at him with eyes that held too many colors to name, and in them he saw something that made his finger freeze on the grip. Not defiance, not aggression, desperation. "Please," she whispered in fractured English. The translator implant in her neck sparked and flickered. Water, food, anything. Every regulation Carter had drilled into his mind for 6 years screamed at him to call it in. The war with the Dominion had been brutal. Trust got you killed, mercy got your squad vaporized. But she wasn't armed. She wasn't even standing. He glanced at the security feed. 2 minutes until the next patrol sweep. The station's main hub buzzed with activity 50 meters away, oblivious to this forgotten maintenance corridor. Carter pulled the ration bar from his vest pocket, his last one. He'd been saving it for the 16-hour shift ahead. Here, he tossed it to her. She caught it with trembling hands, stared at it like he'd thrown her a live grenade, then back at him with those impossible eyes. "You are human?" she said slowly. "Yeah, humans do not help Kashari." He'd heard the name. Kashari, one of the Dominion's client races. Low-tier, expendable soldiers, cannon fodder for species that actually mattered in their hierarchy. "This human does," Carter said. She tore into the ration bar with desperate efficiency. Carter watched the corridor, watched the timer, watched her. She finished in seconds, and some of the gray pallor left her face. "Why?" she asked. "Because you asked. That is not reason enough. Not in war." Carter shrugged. "Maybe it should be." Footsteps echoed from the far junction. The patrol was early. The Kashari girl's eyes widened. She tried to stand, failed, slumped back down. "Go," Carter said quietly. "Access hatch behind you leads to the cargo district. Lose yourself there. They will punish you. They'll have to catch me helping you first." She stared at him for one more heartbeat, then dragged herself toward the hatch. It hissed open. She paused. "My name is Vera. Danny. I will remember Danny." Then she was gone, and Carter was alone when Sergeant Kyle Morrison rounded the corner, rifle ready. "Heard something?" Morrison said. "You see anything?" Carter met his eyes without flinching. "Just the usual ghost ship creaks. This station's falling apart." Morrison grunted, moved on. Carter's hand was still warm where he'd held the ration bar. He had no idea that single choice would crack the Dominion's empire in half. The War Council meeting erupted 3 days later. Carter stood at attention in the briefing room while Admiral Patricia Holland slammed her fist on the table hard enough to make the holographic display flicker. "Explain to me," Holland said, her voice like frozen steel, "how a Dominion spy ring operated on this station for 8 months without detection." Captain Vernon Lewis cleared his throat. "Ma'am, we're still investigating the breach. The breach that got 12 of our intelligence officers killed yesterday." Holland's eyes swept the room. "The one that compromised our entire offensive strategy in the outer reach?" Carter's stomach turned to ice. 12. Because of security failures. Because people got complacent. "We've increased patrols," Lewis continued. "Implemented new screening protocols. Too little, too late." Holland's gaze locked onto Carter. "Lieutenant, you were on duty in Section 7 when the infiltrators accessed the mainframe. Report." Carter's mind raced. Section 7 bordered the maintenance corridor where he'd found Vera. "If they pulled the feeds, if they looked close enough, Nothing unusual, ma'am. Standard patrol. No contacts. Holland studied him for 3 seconds that felt like hours. Dismissed. All of you, except Carter. The room emptied. Carter remained at attention while Holland circled him like a predator. "I've read your file," she said. "Exemplary record. Never even a minor infraction. That's rare. Thank you, ma'am. So when my gut tells me you're lying, it bothers me." She stopped in front of him. "What aren't you telling me, Lieutenant?" The door chimed before Carter could answer. A junior officer entered, face pale. "Admiral, urgent transmission. Encrypted. Kashari origin." Holland frowned. "The Kashari don't encrypt. They barely have functional communications. That's what's strange, ma'am. It's sophisticated, military grade, and it's asking for Lieutenant Carter by name." Every eye in the command center turned to Carter when they brought him in. The main view screen crackled to life, showing Vera's face. But this wasn't the desperate, bleeding girl from the corridor. This Vera wore polished armor, stood straight, spoke with absolute clarity. "Lieutenant Danny Carter," she said. "I am Vera Thorne, representative of the Kashari Liberation Front. 3 days ago, you gave me food when I had none. You showed mercy when your people show only violence. You treated me as a person when the galaxy treats my kind as property." Holland stepped forward. "This is Admiral Holland. You're speaking to a military installation. State your purpose." Vera's multicolored eyes never left Carter. "I am speaking to the human who proved everything we believed about your species was a lie. The Dominion tells us humans are barbarians, destroyers, incapable of compassion. We're at war," Holland said flatly. "Compassion is a luxury, perhaps, but one human's luxury became our revolution." Vera gestured off-screen. The view pulled back to show hundreds of Kashari soldiers, all armed, all watching. "For 40 years, the Dominion has enslaved my people, forced us to fight their wars, told us resistance was impossible. Then I met a human who shared his last meal with an enemy." Carter felt the weight of Holland's stare burning into the side of his head. Vera continued. "We intercepted the Dominion strike plans. The attack on your Outer Reach installations happens in 48 hours. 3 battle groups. Complete orbital bombardment. Your intelligence officers died trying to stop information that we already possess." "Why would you help us?" Holland demanded. "Because kindness is a currency the Dominion does not understand. Because one human proved that honor exists. Because we are tired of dying for masters who treat us as garbage." Vera's expression hardened. "We offer alliance. We provide intelligence. We sabotage Dominion supply lines from within. In exchange, when you win this war, you guarantee Kashari independence." "That's not my authority to grant." "Then find someone with authority. Quickly, the Dominion fleet moves in 36 hours. Without our help, they will break through your defenses. Thousands of humans will die." Vera paused. "Unless you trust the word of a Kashari who was trusted by one of your own." The transmission cut. Silence filled the command center like vacuum. Holland turned to Carter slowly. "You gave aid to an enemy combatant." "Yes, ma'am." "You violated protocol, risked security, and made unauthorized contact." "Yes, ma'am." Holland's expression was unreadable. Then she grabbed a data pad and thrust it at her communications officer. "Get me Fleet Command. Priority Alpha. Tell them we have a potential alliance opportunity and we need diplomatic authority. Now," she looked back at Carter, "you just started something that could end this war or get us all killed. I haven't decided if you're a hero or a traitor yet." "Understood, ma'am. But if those intelligence reports check out," Holland almost smiled, You might have just saved humanity with a protein bar. The Kashari data dumps started arriving within the hour. Carter watched from the intelligence center as analysts tore through terabytes of encrypted Dominion files, fleet movements, command structures, weapon specifications, supply routes, everything Vera had promised and more. Commander Luis Ramirez looked up from his console, face slack with disbelief. This is real. All of it. They've given us the entire Dominion playbook for the Outer Reach sector. Holland stood at the central display, watching enemy fleet positions update in real time. Confirmation on the strike force? 3 battle groups? Just like she said. Flagship is the Dominion cruiser Endless Tyranny. They'll hit our installations at Proxima Outpost in 34 hours. Ramirez zoomed in on the formation. We'd have been slaughtered. They were planning simultaneous strikes on 6 different positions. We'd have lost the entire sector. Can we stop them now with this intelligence? Yes, ma'am. We can position our fleet for ambush. Turn their surprise attack into a killing field. Holland turned to Carter. The Kashari want you as liaison. Direct request from Vera Thorne. Says you're the only human she trusts. Ma'am, I'm not qualified for diplomatic work. Neither was I before they pinned stars on me. You started this, Lieutenant. You're going to see it through. She handed him a data chip. Fleet Command approved the Alliance contingent on verification. The Kashari have 30 hours to prove they can deliver battlefield results. You're going in. Carter's transport dropped out of hyperspace near the Kashari rendezvous coordinates. 12 hours later, what he saw made his breath catch. The Kashari fleet hung in the void like ghosts. Dozens of ships, all retrofitted civilian vessels and salvaged Dominion hulks. Weapons welded onto cargo haulers, shield generators jury-rigged to mining platforms. It looked like a junkyard had achieved orbit, but they were there, armed, ready. Vera met him in the docking bay of her flagship, a converted freighter called the Broken Chain. She looked different in person now that she wasn't dying. Taller than he'd expected. The blue of her skin caught the light like liquid metal. Lieutenant Carter. She didn't salute. The Kashari apparently didn't have that tradition. Welcome. Just Danny is fine. Danny, then. She gestured for him to follow. I must show you something, so you understand what we are fighting for. They walked through corridors packed with Kashari soldiers. All of them stopped to stare at Carter, not with hostility, with something stranger. Hope, maybe? Or curiosity. Vera led him to a viewport overlooking the assembled fleet. Do you know what the Dominion does to Kashari children? Carter shook his head. They take them at age 6, put them in training camps. The ones who survive become soldiers. The ones who don't become fertilizer. Her voice stayed level, but her hands clenched. My younger brother was 5 when the Dominion annexed our world. He would be 7 now. I do not know if he is alive. I do not know if I will ever see him again. I'm sorry. Your people have a saying. Actions speak louder than words. She looked at him. You acted when you had no reason to. That is why I trust you. That is why we all trust you. An alarm blared through the ship. Vera's expression went sharp. Dominion, they must have detected our gathering. They sprinted to the bridge. The tactical display showed 3 Dominion corvettes burning hard toward the Kashari position. Small ships, but heavily armed, more than enough to tear through the improvised fleet. Battle station, Vera commanded. Her crew moved with surprising efficiency. Ready all weapons. Wait. Carter studied the formation. Those corvettes are scouts for the main battle group. If we engage them here, we'll give away our position. The Dominion will know we're organized. They'll adapt. If we run, they will hunt us down individually. We are stronger together. Then don't run. Misdirect. Carter pointed at the display. "You said you've been sabotaging supply lines. Hit one now. Make it loud. Make them think you're just another random raid. Let these corvettes chase ghosts while we reposition." Vera studied him, then smiled. It was fierce. "You think like a Kashari. Strike and vanish. I think like someone who wants to win." The corvettes reached weapons range. The Kashari fleet scattered into 3 groups, each burning different vectors. Carter's transport launched with Vera's command ship, racing toward a Dominion supply depot 8 light minutes away. They hit the depot like lightning. Kashari boarding teams swarmed the station while Vera's flagship provided cover fire. The corvettes gave chase, but by the time they arrived, the Kashari had already looted the depot's ammunition stores and vanished into hyperspace. The depot exploded behind them, a flower of fire blooming in the dark. "Clean execution," Vera said, reviewing the tactical data. "No casualties, maximum disruption. The Dominion will laud this as standard insurgent activity, and they'll never know you're preparing something bigger." Carter watched the debris field recede. "How many cells do you have like this? Hidden throughout Dominion space?" 47 confirmed. Maybe more that haven't revealed themselves yet. "We have been preparing for this moment for years, waiting for the right catalyst." She looked at him. "You were that catalyst, Annie. One act of kindness against a system built on cruelty. It proved we were right to hope." Her communications officer called out, "Message from Admiral Holland. The human fleet is in position. They're ready for the ambush." Vera straightened. "Then we keep our end of the bargain. All cells, activate. Begin simultaneous strikes on Dominion infrastructure across the sector. Make them think they're facing a full-scale uprising." Carter felt the weight of it settle on his shoulders. Thousands of Kashari about to put their lives on the line, human ships preparing for battle, all because he'd shared a ration bar with a desperate stranger. "This is really happening," he said quietly. "This is war," Vera replied. "But perhaps this time it is a war worth fighting." The countdown to the Dominion strike began. 30 hours had become 12, and the galaxy was about to learn what happened when humanity and the Kashari fought together. The Dominion battle group dropped out of hyperspace exactly on schedule. Carter watched from the bridge of the broken chain as 3 massive warships materialized near Proxima Outpost. The Endless Tyranny led the formation, flanked by 2 heavy cruisers. Each vessel bristled with enough firepower to glass a planet. "They're positioning for bombardment," Vera said, reading the tactical feed. "Textbook Dominion assault. Overwhelming force. No mercy. They're about to learn a new lesson." Carter activated his calm link to Admiral Holland. "Human fleet? Status?" Holland's voice crackled through. "We're in position. Asteroid field, grid coordinate Sierra 7. They can't see us yet. Waiting for your signal." The Dominion ships began their attack run, weapons charging, shields at maximum, confident. Then the Kashari cells struck. Across 40 different systems, Kashari insurgents hit Dominion supply depots, communication relays, and fuel stations simultaneously. Explosions rippled through the sector like dominoes falling. Every Dominion command channel screamed with conflicting reports. On the bridge of the Endless Tyranny, Commander Thax Boron watched his tactical display dissolve into chaos. The reptilian Dominion officer's scales rippled with confusion. "Report," he hissed. "Kashari uprisings. Sector Y, 47 confirmed incidents." His tactical officer's voice trembled. "Sir, this is coordinated. They've never operated like this before. Impossible. The Kashari are slaves. They lack the capability for organized resistance. Tell that to the 12 stations we just lost, sir." Voron's eyes narrowed. Something was wrong. The Kashari were attacking everywhere except here. Why leave the main battle group untouched? Scan the surrounding space. Full spectrum. Now, sir, our orders are to destroy the human outpost. Our orders assume we're not walking into a trap. The sensors swept the asteroid field. Found nothing. The human outpost sat there, vulnerable and undefended, just like intelligence had promised. Too vulnerable. Too convenient. Abort the attack, Vorin commanded. Pull back to defensive formation. But he was 3 seconds too late. The human fleet burst from the asteroids like wolves from shadows. 12 destroyers, 6 cruisers, all of them firing before the Dominion ships could adjust their shields. The first salvo tore through the endless tyranny's port side. Atmosphere vented in brilliant geysers. The second cruiser took a railgun round straight through its reactor. It didn't explode. It simply stopped existing. "All ships evasive action!" Vorin screamed. "Return fire!" The Dominion vessels were powerful, but they'd been configured for bombardment, not fleet engagement. Their weapons pointed down toward planets, not outward toward threats. The human ships danced around them, exploiting every blind spot, every weakness the Kashari intelligence had revealed. Carter watched the battle unfold with cold precision. "Vera, your turn." With pleasure, the Kashari fleet dropped out of hyperspace behind the Dominion formation. Ramshackle ships armed with stolen weapons and desperate courage. They weren't pretty, they weren't professional, but they were angry. Kashari boarding pods launched like a swarm of hornets. They latched onto the Dominion hulls and burned through. What happened next wasn't warfare. It was liberation. Kashari soldiers poured into Dominion ships and found more Kashari inside. Slaves, prisoners, soldiers forced to fight for masters who treated them as expendable. Vera had been counting on that. Had known that every Dominion vessel carried Kashari crew who'd been waiting years for this moment. The mutiny spread like fire. On the endless tyranny, Vorin watched his own crew turn against him. A Kashari engineer he'd never bothered learning the name of put a plasma cutter through the bridge security door. "Surrender the ship," the engineer said quietly, "or die with it." Vorin reached for his sidearm. The engineer was faster. The plasma cutter hummed once, and Vorin collapsed. "This is broken chain to all vessels." Vera's voice rang across every frequency. "Kashari brothers and sisters in bondage, the time is now. Rise, fight, you are slaves no longer." The third Dominion cruiser tried to run, made it exactly 40 kilometers before its Kashari engineering crew sabotaged the hyperdrive. It drifted, powerless, into the guns of a human destroyer. The battle lasted 18 minutes. When the firing stopped, 2 Dominion cruisers were captured. One was debris, and the sector was secure. Carter stood on the observation deck of Holland's flagship 3 hours later, watching Kashari and human crews work together to salvage the captured vessels. Engineers traded technical knowledge, soldiers shared rations. 2 species that had been enemies yesterday now laughed at the same jokes. Despite the language barriers, Holland appeared beside him. "Fleet Command is calling it the Battle of Proxima, shortest major engagement of the war. Lowest casualty rate on our side in 3 years." She paused. "Historians are going to study this for centuries. We got lucky." Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. You created the opportunity, the Kashari provided the preparation. Together you changed everything. Holland handed him a datapad. "Dominion High Command just issued an emergency recall. They're pulling forces from 6 sectors to deal with Kashari uprisings. Their whole military structure is collapsing inward. How many Kashari cells have activated? Last count, 217. Vera's broadcast during the battle went viral across their networks. Every enslaved Kashari population heard it. They're all rising now. Carter thought about that. Hundreds of worlds, millions of people, all of them finding courage because one girl survived and decided to trust. The Dominion Council is requesting negotiations, Holland continued. They want to discuss terms. They're actually using the word truce for the first time in this war. Will we agree? That's above my pay grade. But between you and me, Holland almost smiled. Yeah, we'll talk. Because we're winning, and they know it. The Kashari uprising is tearing their empire apart from the inside. Without their slave soldiers, the Dominion can't sustain their military. They're done. Via approached across the deck, accompanied by 3 Kashari commanders Carter didn't recognize. They all carried themselves with new confidence. Free people, not slaves. Danny, Vera said, we're forming a provisional government. The Kashari Confederation will need human advisors, people we trust. She met his eyes. I'm asking you to be our liaison. Officially, I'm just a lieutenant. You're the human who saw a person when everyone else saw an enemy. That makes you exactly who we need. Holland nodded. I'll approve the transfer. Congratulations, Lieutenant. You're now a diplomat. Carter looked out at the wreckage of Dominion ships being stripped for salvage, at Kashari and human crews working side by side, at the future being built from the ashes of tyranny. I just gave her a ration bar, he said quietly, and she gave us a revolution, Vera replied. Strange how the smallest acts create the largest changes. In the distance, more Kashari ships dropped out of hyperspace. Refugees freed slaves. Warriors, all of them coming home to a future they'd barely dared to imagine. The war wasn't over, but for the first time, everyone could see how it would end. The Dominion Council chamber on their homeworld of Kraith was built to intimidate, vaulted ceilings that swallowed light, pillars carved from the bones of extinct species, thrones positioned to force supplicants to kneel. Carter walked in standing upright beside Vera and refused to lower his eyes. The 7 council members watched him with expressions ranging from contempt to barely concealed fury. These were the architects of an empire that had ruled for 3 centuries. They weren't accustomed to negotiating. High Counselor Drax, a massive creature with 6 arms and crystalline skin, spoke first. His voice resonated like grinding stone. The human who started this insurrection, we expected someone more impressive. Disappointed? Carter asked, curious. One act of misplaced compassion has cost us 40 systems and 17 million soldiers. We wish to understand the mind capable of such disruption. I didn't disrupt anything. I just helped someone who needed it. Your empire disrupted itself by being built on slavery. Drax's crystalline surface darkened. Philosophical debate is not why we summoned you. We are here to discuss terms of cessation. You mean surrender? Vera said coldly. We mean negotiation. Another counselor, a serpentine creature named Salor, leaned forward. The Kashari rebellion has created instability. Chaos serves no one. We propose a compromise. Kashari autonomy within Dominion space, self-governance, limited military restrictions. In exchange, you cease hostilities and return our captured vessels. Carter glanced at Vera. Her expression could have cut steel. You enslaved us for 40 years, she said, stole our children, forced us to die in your wars, and now you offer us limited autonomy as if it's a gift? She stepped closer to the council platform. Here are our terms. Complete Kashari independence, reparations for 4 decades of enslavement, and prosecution of every Dominion official involved in war crimes against my people. Drax actually laughed. It sounded like an avalanche. Absurd. We could crush your rebellion within months if we committed full resources. Then why are you here negotiating? Carter asked. If you're so strong, why not just attack? Silence fell across the chamber. Because you can't, Carter continued. The Kashari weren't just your soldiers. They were your engineers, your technicians, your infrastructure workers. Every system that keeps your empire running depended on slave labor. Now that labor is gone, your supply chains are collapsing. Your fleet maintenance is failing. Your entire civilization is grinding to a halt. Salor's eyes narrowed. You overestimate the damage, do I? Our intelligence says you've got food riots on 12 worlds. Your military response time has tripled. 3 of your client species are already discussing independence because they see the Kashari succeeded.
Carter crossed his arms.
You're not negotiating from strength. You're negotiating from desperation. Another counselor, a being composed entirely of shifting shadows, spoke for the first time. And what of humanity? You align with former enemies, violate centuries of interstellar convention by supporting slave uprisings. The other powers will see this as dangerous precedent. Let them, Carter said. Maybe it's time for a new precedent. One where empires built on oppression don't get to exist. Idealistic, naive. The shadow creature's voice dripped condescension. You cannot reshape the galaxy through sentiment. Watch us. The council chamber doors burst open. A Dominion military officer rushed in, scales pale with panic. High Council, urgent report. The Braxian Collective has just declared war. They're citing our weakened state as justification for territorial acquisition. Their fleets are mobilizing. Drax rose from his throne. This meeting is postponed? No. Vera's voice cut through the chaos. This meeting is over. You have 48 hours to accept our terms. Complete independence, reparations, war crime, prosecutions. If you refuse, the Kashari Confederation will ally formally with humanity and any other species interested in dismantling your empire.
You would invite outside invasion, Salor hissed.
Watch your own people suffer in the crossfire? My people have been suffering for 40 years. At least now we suffer as free beings fighting for our future, not as slaves dying for yours. Vera turned to leave. 48 hours, counselors. Choose wisely. Carter followed her out. The council chamber doors sealed behind them with a sound like a tomb closing. Outside, in the landing area, human and Kashari ships waited in formation, a show of force, a promise of protection. Admiral Holland stood by Carter's transport. How'd it go? About as well as expected, Carter said. They're terrified but too proud to show it. The Braxian invasion? Real. Confirmed by our intelligence, too. Holland pulled up a tactical display. The Dominion is about to get hit from 3 sides. Braxian Collective from the north, Kashari resistance from within, and ongoing conflicts with us in the outer sectors. They can't fight all of us. Will they accept the terms? They don't have a choice. But that doesn't mean they'll go quietly. Holland's expression grew grim. We've got reports of Dominion hardliners forming splinter fleets, officers who'd rather go down fighting than surrender. This could get messy. An explosion lit up the sky above them. Carter's head snapped up. A Dominion orbital defense platform was firing on civilian transports trying to evacuate Kashari refugees from the planet. They're killing their own people, Vera whispered, to prevent them from escaping. More platforms opened fire. Escaped ships burst into flames. Bodies fell toward the atmosphere like burning rain. Carter felt something cold and sharp settle in his chest. Get our fleet in firing position. Now. Carter, we're in Dominion home space. If we engage here, it's an act of war on their capital world. They're slaughtering civilians. That platform goes down, or we're no better than they are. Holland hesitated for exactly 2 seconds. Then she activated her command channel. All ships, target those defense platforms. Fire on my mark. Human destroyers lit up the sky with railgun fire. The platforms exploded one by one, raining debris onto the council's spires below. The evacuation ships scattered and ran for hyperspace. On the ground, Dominion security forces rushed toward the landing area, weapons raised, ready to arrest or kill the humans who just attacked their homeworld. Carter stood his ground beside Vera and Holland. The Kashari honor guard formed up behind them. Human Marines took defensive positions. This is it, Holland said quietly. We just declared war on the Dominion capital. No walking this back. Good, Carter replied. I'm done walking carefully around monsters. The Dominion forces stopped 50 meters away. Their commander, a scarred veteran with cybernetic enhancements, raised his weapon toward Carter. Then he lowered it and knelt. Behind him, one by one, the entire security force dropped to their knees. What's happening? Holland breathed. The commander spoke in broken English. Kashari mother, human father, raised in camps, forced to serve. He looked at Vera. No more. We serve you now. Free Kashari. True Kashari. More Dominion soldiers were emerging from buildings across the capital, not to fight, to defect. The empire wasn't just collapsing. It was dissolving. And in the council chamber, watching through the windows as their own forces abandoned them, the 7 counselors finally understood what Carter had tried to tell them. You can't build forever on the backs of people you've broken. Eventually, they rise. 6 months later, Carter stood in the memorial garden on the newly renamed planet of Free Kashar. The garden stretched across what had once been a Dominion training camp where Kashari children were turned into soldiers. Now flowers grew where barracks had stood. Trees rose where drill yards had crushed spirits. And in the center, a simple monument bore the names of every Kashari who died in 40 years of slavery. Vera found him reading the names etched in stone. Thousands of them. Millions, really. But these were the ones they'd managed to identify. You come here often, she said. Someone should remember them. We all remember. That's why we built this place. She stood beside him, looking at the endless list of names. The Dominion Council accepted our terms. Full independence, reparations paid over 20 years. War crimes tribunals begin next month. I heard. Congratulations. It feels incomplete. Justice delayed. Many of those responsible will die of old age before facing consequences. That's how it works sometimes. The galaxy doesn't give us perfect endings. Vera smiled slightly. No, but it gives us better ones than we had before. In the distance, construction crews worked on the new Kashari Capitol building. Human engineers worked alongside Kashari architects, building something neither species could have created alone. The design blended both cultures, functional and beautiful, practical and hopeful. Admiral Holland told me you're being promoted, Vera said. Commander Carter, official ambassador to the Kashari Confederation. I tried to decline. They insisted. Of course they did. You're the human who changed the galaxy with a ration bar. She laughed, and it was a sound Carter had learned to treasure. Kashari laughter was rare, precious. The children already tell stories about you, the soldier who fed the starving girl and started a revolution. I didn't start anything. You did. You took that chance and turned it into freedom for your entire species. We did it together. Bera placed her hand on the monument. All of us, human and Kashari, soldier and slave. Everyone who chose to believe that things could be different. A young Kashari girl approached them shyly. She couldn't have been more than 8. She carried a small flower and placed it at the base of the monument. "My mother's name is here," she said quietly. "She died fighting, but she told me before that if the rebellion came, we should join it. She said freedom was worth dying for." Carter knelt to the girl's level. "What's your name?" "Kira." "Kira, your mother was right about freedom, but she was also right about something else." He gestured at the garden, at the construction, at the future being built around them. She knew that people who fight for freedom don't just fight for themselves. They fight so children like you never have to. The girl looked at the monument, then at Carter, then at Bera. "Are you the human from the stories?" "I'm just a soldier who made a choice. The right choice," Kira said with absolute certainty. Then she ran off to join other children playing in the garden where their parents had once suffered. Vera watched them go. 43 new worlds have joined our confederation in the last month. Species that were enslaved by the Dominion. They saw what we did and found their own courage. The Empire is fracturing completely now. Within a year, it will cease to exist. And what rises in its place? Something better, we hope. She turned to Carter. "Humanity could have exploited our desperation, could have turned us into new vassals. Instead, you offered partnership. Why?" Carter thought about that question. He'd been asked it 100 times in 100 different ways. Reporters, diplomats, even Admiral Holland once, late at night over coffee. "Because I met a girl who was dying and asked for help," he said finally. "And when I looked at her, I didn't see an enemy or an alien or a strategic opportunity. I saw someone who needed food, and I had food to give. Everything else followed from that. One act of basic decency. Yeah, turns out that's revolutionary in a galaxy that forgot how to be decent." A transport descended toward the landing pad nearby. Holland emerged, accompanied by Kashari President They Corsair, the former slave who'd led the initial uprising on the mining colonies. "Carter, Vera!" Holland called. "We need you both. Emergency council session." They walked to the government building together. Inside, representatives from 17 species filled the chambers. The Kashari Confederation had grown beyond anyone's expectations. Freed slaves from across the former Dominion had come together, bringing their cultures, their knowledge, their determination. President Corsair stood at the podium. "We face a decision. The Dominion remnant fleets have offered complete surrender. No conditions. They want asylum, protection from war crimes prosecution, and safe passage to neutral space." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. "They want mercy they never showed us," someone called out. "Justice demands they face consequences," another added. Corsair raised his hand for silence. "Ambassador Carter, you began this journey. What would humanity counsel?" Every eye turned to Carter. He thought about the monument in the garden, the names of the dead, the children playing where training camps had stood, the future being built on the ruins of tyranny. "In human history," he said slowly, "we have a long record of cycles. Oppression leads to rebellion. Rebellion leads to vengeance. Vengeance creates new oppression. The cycle repeats." He paused. "But sometimes, rarely, someone breaks the cycle. They choose something harder than revenge. They choose to build instead of destroy. You're suggesting we show them mercy?" The question came sharp with anger. "I'm suggesting we show them justice. Real justice, not the kind they practiced, but the kind we fight for." Hold them accountable through tribunals. Make them face what they've done, but don't become them. Don't build your new civilization on their graves, or you'll just create the next empire that needs toppling. Silence filled the chamber. Then Vera stood. I agree with Ambassador Carter. We prosecute the war criminals. We hold the guilty accountable. But we don't slaughter refugees and call it justice. That's Dominion thinking. We're better than that now. The vote took 30 minutes. When it finished, the Kashari Confederation had agreed to accept the Dominion surrender, process war criminals through legitimate courts, and offer asylum to those not directly responsible for atrocities. Afterward, Carter and Vera stood on the balcony overlooking the city. We just let our oppressors live, Vera said quietly. We just proved we're not them. Some of my people will be angry. Some of mine, too. That's the price of choosing the harder path. Carter looked at the stars beginning to emerge in the evening sky. But if we'd chosen vengeance, 50 years from now, someone would be standing where we are, wondering how to fix the mess we created. This way, maybe the cycle actually ends. Vera was quiet for a long moment. Then she placed something in Carter's hand. A small metal token, roughly cast, with Kashari writing on one side and English on the other. What's this? A coin. We're minting them for the new currency. That's the first one, it says. From small mercy, great freedom. We want you to have it. Carter turned the coin over in his fingers. It was crude, imperfect, real. The beginning of something new. I just gave you food, he said. You did everything else. You gave me hope when I had none. You proved kindness could exist in a cruel galaxy. That was worth more than food. Vera smiled. And now we get to build a civilization where kindness isn't revolutionary, where helping someone in need is just what people do. Below them, the city lights were coming on. Human and Kashari homes, side by side, children of both species playing together in the streets, a future nobody had dared imagine 6 months ago. Carter pocketed the coin and looked out at that future. He'd started with one meal, one choice, one moment of basic human decency, and the galaxy would never be the same. Somewhere in the darkness, other empires watched and wondered. Other slaves dreamed and planned. Other revolutions waited to be born. All they needed was one person willing to share what they had with someone who needed it. One small mercy that could change everything.